Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our club meeting. It's wonderful to see new faces, and we actually had to put a few more tables, so this is really exciting. I am just going to put in a little plug for Toastmasters while I have a chance. When I first started Toastmasters, everything was new, and I was thinking about it yesterday, and I thought, every Toastmasters meeting, there's something new if you make it happen. And the reason I say that is there is a program. If you follow that program, believe me, you're going to be challenged. I am challenged today to do something I've never done before, and I probably would never do outside of this club. I'm going to do a panel discussion. And we have never had one, at least I haven't seen one modeled in our club or any other clubs that I've been in. So I'm excited. It's going beyond our comfort zone, but it's a growth experience. And the older I get, I realize we've got to do something new every day. If you want to stay young, do something new every day. And I want to stay young. Who doesn't want to stay young? Who wants to stay young? Okay. In choosing what topic to select for this presentation, I wasn't too sure what I was going to do, but I was watching a video, a YouTube video with Ron one day, and it was RFK Jr. I don't know if some of you younger ones don't know who that is, but RFK was Robert Kennedy, and he was president when I was a teenager. And his son is still alive, and he's very much into politics. And he did a presentation about his concern. He is very concerned for the health of Americans. And it was through him that I heard that phrase that I used as a theme. Americans are the sickest people on earth. He went on to give a lot of statistics. And I was alarmed because it's not like we don't see. We're not blind. We see the situation. When we go places, we know that people are overweight. We know that what we eat and are served at the restaurants is not that good. But why do we still indulge? Anyway, when I picked that subject, I thought, we have the perfect panelists for this. And I'm excited that it all came together, and I'm glad that you are here to enjoy it. Let me share with you what he said. He said that 2/3 of Americans suffer from chronic health issues. And he said that means that we have immune system collapse and mitochondrial dysfunction. And our panelist will be speaking about that. Let me give you a few statistics. These were alarming when I heard them. In the American population, the majority of adults and children are overweight and obese. That's the majority, about 75%. 50% of adults and 1 out of 3 children are diabetics. 15% of teenagers have fatty liver disease. This was a disease that wasn't heard of before, and it was mainly in late-stage alcoholics. Cancer among adults and youth is on the rise. 1 out of 4 American women are on depression medication. 40% of teens have mental health disorders. 15% of high schoolers are on ADHD medication, and 500,000 children are on antidepressants. Pretty depressing information, huh? So what are some of the root causes? We're going to cover that. Our panelists are going to be covering that today. So be sure to listen carefully, take notes for our guests. I think there's paper in your little package that we got there that you can make some notes. But here is the focus of this panel discussion. I'm going to say something needs to change. We must what must we do to make America healthy again? Our panel, like I said, are a very special group of people, and I would like to introduce them today. And as I introduce them, would you please pass up to the table that we have on stage here. First of all, Dr. Ignacio Zarate. Dr. Zarate is an emergency medical physician with 30 plus years of experience. He provides life-saving care to patients in critical conditions and in high-stress environments. Mr. Ron Martin, he earned his BS degree and MS degree in food science and nutrition, has over 35 years of experience as a professional food scientist, and he's worked for big food companies like Hunt Wesson, Nutrilite Division of Ameren. For the last 15 years, he's also been developing the online database of nutrition and genetics.net. Dr. James Augustine, he's a doctor of chiropractic, is a specialist in functional medicine, and has been a holistic healthcare provider for over 36 years. I want to thank you all for your participation. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to this presentation. I'm going to start with Ignacio and ask him a question. Also, I want to let you know that there will be, after they're speaking, a Q&A period. And feel free to ask any of our panelists a question, and those online as well. Ignacio, from your perspective, what are the biggest health risks that Americans are facing in 2024?
Good morning. Well, I think there are many risks to our health status in America, but I'm going to talk about two. The first one is big pharma, and the second is a condition called metabolic syndrome. So big pharma, or the pharmaceutical industry, the people that make our medications to get us feeling better, on the surface may seem like a respectable industry because, after all, they make the medications that make us feel better to generate jobs. But on the other side of the coin, it's petrifying because big pharma prioritizes profit over the Americans' protection and prevention of disease. When you consider big pharma's priorities for prioritizing profit, it's scary to know that they're a monopoly and they hold the patents for the medications that make us feel better. And they control productivity and pricing. They're very aggressive marketers. When you turn on the TV, within 10, 15 minutes, you've heard one or two advertisements. So when patients show up to a provider's office, they come in requesting medications. We also pressure providers to prescribe those medications. They have significant lobbying power to make sure that their interests are protected. As an example of how big pharma prioritizes profit over prevention and protection of the American health, let's take a look at the opioid crisis. They know that opiates are highly addictive. They know that thousands of young Americans are dying from overdose, but they continue to market it. When it comes to the competition, they're ruthless and aggressive, especially if the innovative treatment is curative, because there's no money in curing a disease. Can't sell their medications. So they cast a shadow of doubt on the new innovative treatments by questioning their efficacy and downplaying the impact that they have. When medications go through the FDA or Federal Food and Drug Administration program for approval, they sometimes withhold unethically data that tells us that medications are harmful. The other risk is metabolic syndrome, originally named Syndrome X in 1988, but relabeled as metabolic syndrome by the World Health Organization in 1998. And metabolic syndrome is a collection of 4 medical conditions that occur at the same time in an individual that becomes colloquially the witch's port because it halts the development and involvement of cardiovascular disease, which is the biggest killer in America. About 750,000 people die annually from cardiovascular disease. To put it in perspective, imagine 4 747s carrying 2,500 people and crashing and burning every day. So to remember the four diseases, think of the acronym DH2O, where D stands for diabetes. And Elizabeth mentioned the number of diabetics, but I want to impress upon you that the diagnosed diabetics are a very large number already, but there are 120 million Americans that are pre-diabetics that are waiting to jump on the bandwagon. So that's the D. The first H is for hyperglycemia, which is 95 million Americans. I have it. The second H is for hypertension, which is almost half of America, 47%. And the O, which was already addressed, is obesity. And obesity, it's over half of America, 60 to 75%. We spend 173 billion with a B addressing the problems that arise from obesity. Hypertension, diabetes, blindness, and cardiovascular disease, the biggest killer. But also liver disease, fatty liver disease. It seems that we exchange the four major food products, fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and proteins for salts and sugars, fats, and alcohol. So the root cause for this metabolic syndrome is diet. So the two biggest risks in my mind is big pharma and metabolic syndrome.
Next question. We're going to talk a little bit about big food industry, which is like Ron shared in his introduction, has been a part of for a number of years. Ron, is the big food industry out to get us? Are they out to poison us?
Thank you, Elizabeth. The video that we saw that you referenced from RFK Jr., he said big pharma is to blame and big food is to blame. Well, I've worked for big food on West End for a few years and the visual division of Amway, which is a multi-billion-dollar company. And the bottom line is that they, and I agree with what Oscar said, they are in it to make money. I know that for a fact because I worked most of my career in product development, developing unique products of all types of nutritional products, could be protein powders, could be powders, or whatever. Vitamins, tablets, etc. And even if the technical people have a health issue that they say, hey, this is a great health issue, we should probably develop a product about it, they will look at the potential for sales. If sales aren't there, they may modify the product to say, well, let's take a look at what our competitors are doing. They're selling all kinds of this product. Let's make a product like that. And so basically, it's more motivated on profit than anything else. Now, does that mean that they're bad companies, that they're bad people, that they're doing wrong?
I can't hear.
That you can blame them?
No, it's close enough.
Well, if any blame was going to be assigned, I'd recommend that we blame ourselves. Because if we demand certain kinds of products, the industry is going to supply that demand, basically. So we have to educate ourselves. But that's not easy because if someone says, well, I can give you some great advice, but it's not profitable for anyone, so who's going to pay for the promotion of that great advice? No one, basically. But we have to try to inculcate the awareness and motivation for people to learn more. Now, I became interested in this whole topic area because of what Elizabeth's project was about, but also because I was diagnosed with the entry stage of diabetes just recently. And so I started looking at information, but it's not that easy to dig it out. You really have to work at it. But one resource that I'm fond of now is YouTube. And I started looking at different YouTube presentations, and there's a lot of quacks out there, but there are some better doctors that have a good following, and they have 100,000 people that followed them, and they have things to say. Well, I ran across one that was ideally suited to this particular presentation, this panel discussion, and it was a recording by Dr. Ford Brewer, who's not only a medical doctor but also has a master's in public health. And he builds a persuasive case about how the food industry has been misleading millions of Americans regarding highly processed foods, including breakfast cereals and like Cheerios, right? And also popular breakfast drinks like orange juice. They said that orange juice sales are about $1 billion a year, and Cheerio sales way off the charts in terms of volume and in terms of millions of dollars. So the bottom line is the claim was the big pharma benefits for big food items like these that I just mentioned because it perpetuates the focus on blood lipids as being the main cause of cardiovascular disease. When in fact, the fact that we are ingesting too many carbohydrates raises our blood sugar. It makes our insulin sensitivity go down and can lead to diabetes. So those are the reasons that I say that this is important, and we can talk a little bit later about what to do about it. But I believe that yes, it is a problem, and big food is, it shares a little bit of responsibility, but it's really up to us to dig out the truth.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, we're going to move on to Dr. Jim. And we're going to ask, how are we going to solve these issues? We can hear a lot of bad things, but we want to know, what do we do to solve these issues and make America healthy again?
This is where the road meets the road. This is what we need to know. We're talking about three things. The first is belief and understanding some really important shifts in the mindset. Secondly, moving benefit. And third, let's talk about some practical things, some take-home items that you can implement right away to actually start changing your health. Number one is mindset. First off, doctors, unfortunately, today do not look for root causes of problem. You ever asked that question? You go to your doctor, you have high blood pressure. You ever asked the question why? And wouldn't it be best? And don't get me wrong, there are other cases that medicine is important and it definitely will lower your blood pressure. But what about the question, why is my blood pressure high in the first place? And more questions. You need to know what's causing these health issues. So that's the first item. Number two, you should find a doctor that specializes in functional medicine. I happen to do that, but it's so much more rewarding when people will say that my problems are already solved. Would you rather manage and control your diabetes or resolve it? Obvious answer there, right? It is solvable. Now, there's type 1 diabetes that's autoimmune. That's a whole other picture, but classically, pre-diabetes and diabetes, you can actually work at solving this. The other mindset that's so difficult is people are absolutely unwilling to change their diet, especially diabetics. It's crazy insane. And I'm in the trenches every day with people. They will not change their diet. So please start to change your mind on this. It's so essential. Because if you wouldn't put sugar in the gas tank of your car, because it would destroy your engine, why in the world would you put it in your body? Number two, who could benefit? Absolutely everyone. I have patients from newborns. Currently, I have a patient that's 90, a patient that's 91, a patient that's 99, and also 100 right now. They're phenomenal, and they are all changing and improving in big ways. My practice is more holistic healthcare. I see chronic illness, cancer, autoimmune disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, all those things. And it's so rewarding to see people heal and resolve these issues. So everybody can benefit. Don't think you're beyond repair. Number three. So what are some first steps? What's some things that you absolutely need? First off, understanding that our diets are a critical factor. If you don't change your diet, it doesn't matter what else you do. Things will continue to degrade and get worse. So dietary change, and my first step is a ketogenic diet, because most people can get their head around that. Some fresh foods. Don't eat processed boxed foods. Eat fresh foods. Breakfast should be bacon and eggs, bacon and sausage, eggs and sausage, protein and fat. Out of the free foods, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Two of them are essential. You absolutely need protein because as you get older, about 40, you start losing lean muscle mass. Protein is critical. After meal, you should be having protein and fat because it also stabilizes your blood sugar. Okay. Number 2, as far as food's concerned, ketogenic is protein and vegetables and some good fats. Now let's talk about fat for a minute. Free fats. Well, let's just say, make it a little easier. We'll say saturated fat, which has got the reign of evil. Don't eat saturated fat. That's awful. Red meat is terrible. And it's actually the opposite truth. Out of the fats that we look at, we have omega-6s, saturated fat, omega-3s. Most unstable fats, omega-6s, unstable. A little bit of heat will damage them, oxidize them, and they will be very bad for you. The most stable fat, saturated fat. There was nothing wrong with saturated fat. Doesn't raise your blood sugar. So it's a good thing. And fat is essential for your hormones, for brain function. Every cell in your body, 37 trillion cells, plus or minus, has a phospholipid fat layer to protect them from cancer. Fat's essential. Now, my ultimate that I'd like to give you folks here is a carnivore diet, be only animal protein and fat. Way more bioavailability of all the nutrients in animal protein and fat. A lot less bioavailability in vegetables. And then you run the risk of blood sugar problems with certain fruits. Peas, carrots, corn, potatoes, starch. Starch has thousands of glucose molecules strung together, but it's not sweet. So you really want to avoid starch. Big time. And I think my time is
Great. Thank you. Some of the root causes that JFK said was that there are chemical additives that make food addictive. Would one of you like to respond to that question? Ron?
I don't know that there are additives that make it addictive. I think that some people suspect that to be true just because the cigarette industry is trying to make the cigarettes more addictive. But there are hidden sugars in many foods to make them win a taste test side-by-side comparison. For instance, I brought with me today, for as an example, jar of peanut butter. Happens to be sticky. But if you look at the label, it says 1 serving, which is, they say it's 15, or 1 tablespoon. That's not 1 heaping tablespoon. That would be 1 probably level tablespoon, which is probably not even as much you put on 1 piece of toast. Has 2 grams of added sugar. They add sugar to, hey, wasn't old-fashioned peanut butter just peanuts and salt, and just, that was it? Now they added mistakes. And even salad dressings can have sugar added to it. You have to look at the labels. It's really important to look at that. And those are the kinds of things that you want to like. We say, hey, that's the greatest thing ever, taste-wise, but it's not the greatest thing ever, health-wise. So that
yeah, not quite additives, but interesting that they've done brain studies and they look at a person's brain that's on cocaine and then a person's brain is on sugar. Same exact picture. So talking about the addictive nature of sugar, it is the number 1 most addictive legal drug, sugar.
Right. Thank you so much. With that, we're going to change a little bit here and give time for the audience. If you have any questions that you'd like. Yes, Peter.
Hi. I work in a gas station, and probably 2 out of every 3 transactions I do are through energy drinks, energy bars, Celsius, Red Bull, Monster, etc. With the fact that more and more people are turning to the energy bars and are turning to those type of drinks, how is that affecting our health compared to what we did prior?
Someone on panel want to address it?
So the energy drinks are loaded with a stimulant. let alone the sugar we talked about they can contain. The stimulants could be harmful to the heart. Not everybody is the same. Some people are extra sensitive and it can trigger a tachycardia or a fast response called supraventricular tachycardia. And in general, you're going to end up feeling awake, but your heart's going to be racing, and it's not healthy for the heart. And I think there are better ways to gain your energy, and that would be exercise and diet as well. So, in my opinion, the energy drinks are harmful and specifically focusing on the heart.
Totally agree with Ignacio. There's been some recent studies on that young people are having heart attacks as a result of that, as a result of the stimulants that are in the energy drinks. When in fact, blood sugar control makes a huge difference. When blood sugar dips down, you're going to be sleepy, groggy, brain fog, all those things. So really critical to get the energy drinks out as well as the starch and sugar.
Another thought is that if people are buying energy drinks as real popular, it's probably because they don't have the vitality that they really want. Why don't they not have much money? Well, maybe they're overworked. Maybe they don't sleep enough. That won't contribute to that. But also it could be that they're becoming insulin insensitive because they've been eating too many carbs. Patients made it.
I think I'm going to have you come up because I'm not sure that the people online can hear. So if you have a question, would you please come up? We'll go ahead and start with Jacob.
Really online.
This question is for, I'm Jacob George, by the way. This question is for Dr. Jim. And Dr. Jim, my question is, if the carnivore diet is high in animal fats and saturated fats, can't this actually raise your LDL? Can't this actually be a contributing factor for heart disease?
You open up a can of worms. Great question, Jacob. And I love talking about this because the thing that makes your blood cholesterol is your liver. Heart, skin, and liver, starch, sugar, and alcohol. So eating saturated fat may, in some cases, people that are super sensitive, they have a hyperreaction with cholesterol. It can raise it slightly. But there's also a ton of true science that demonstrates that cholesterol is actually protected and essential for your brain and the number one fuel for your heart is actually fat. So cholesterol doesn't necessarily be a bad thing. Imagine fire raging, because don't you want to put out fire and find fuel source? So you want to find out why is your cholesterol high? And I typically turn to liver being a problem and fixing the liver, and then cholesterol starts to dramatically rise with that problem. Even though my opinion in all the science stuff that I've looked at, cholesterol really doesn't cause heart disease. Starch, sugar, alcohol, raising your high insulin. If your insulin goes up and it gets so high that your body's not recognizing it, like Roger said, that's a big problem. It's very disruptive to your heart and lungs. But great question.
Just one thought on top of that. Saw a great video this morning. I started watching it. It was a cardiologist was saying that even with the statin drugs, that really hasn't dramatically reduced heart disease. So he thinks that we can help prevent the sequence of events that leads to heart disease by getting rid of the extra carbs and fats.
Okay, we have another question from her.
All of us will be alarmed by what all of you said today. Some of us will deny it, but I see that every day. Now, what will be the future of the United States? How can the United States continue to become the leader of the world if we have sick population? Now, question is, how do you strike a balance between social responsibility and the profit motive of big pharmas, food industry, people, and how do we educate the public? what's the role of the public education system? It has to start at the community level, at the schools, in churches. This is a big issue, and this will affect the stature of the United States of America as leader in so many facets of societal life. That's a big issue, I guess.
I want to say something quickly, and that is that there has been a trend towards not only accepting obesity as norm, but also to say, hey, it's not so bad. We're going to have fashion shows with oversized and so on and so forth. And I think that we should not place a stigma upon those who are not able to reduce their weight. But on the other hand, I think what we can do is say that, fat can be beautiful, but it is not healthy, and that we should be beating the healthy drum.
It's a great question. I think it goes back to our politicians. I'm not sure I can trust them, but policy change that's going to be important nationwide. But that policy needs to affect the population as well as the medical industry. I'll leave it at that. It is not for practice.
It is also tough in healthcare to change the thinking of healthcare practitioners. But people are demanding it. We have people coming in absolutely frustrated and in tears because their doctor won't listen to them. And unfortunately, that typical medical practice, they can spend maybe 5, maybe the most 10 minutes with a patient, which is typically too much. And how in the world can you find root causes and solutions in 5 minutes? You can't. So that also needs to change. But I think with social media and people demanding to get healthier, and then when you look at it, so common sense, where you can, the problem is out there. It's so obvious. Obesity and blood sugar. 1 out of 3 people have pre-diabetic. And the problem with diabetes and pre-diabetes is it causes heart disease. Still the number one killer. So it all fits together nicely. It's just we need more information, and we do need, like Yossi was saying, we need politicians that could potentially start making some policies and everything. And who knows what's going to happen? But we can just do our progress.
Also, I would love to see more emphasis on prevention than on treatment. And also, as Elizabeth mentioned, I've been working on a database, online database, pertaining to genetics and health the last 18 years. And when I asked my doctor if he was interested in genetics for health purposes, he said, no, but it's the future. And I pressed him again. I see him every so often. I asked him again 2 or 3 times. And he finally said, well, look, after work is over, I got a family to take care of. I don't have time to get into that next time.
Can we have another question, Sarah?
I would love to know your perspective and your own personal perspective and your advice work on the current enormously popularity of cannabis products and THC balances and CBD balances and claims to vitality, mental health, and healing across the board. Cancers.
So Elizabeth, can you rephrase the question? I didn't hear at the end there.
I'm a little bit losing my voice. I apologize. So, curious to know your personal feelings and how you handle patients who would come in here like your cannabis in a huge way popular of all cannabis products and the balances of THC and CBD and claims to vitality, mental health, cancer healing, and all of the rest. Thank you.
I'm not sure. Cannabis, and CBD,
THC and CBD.
and CBD. It has everything to do with marijuana.
So I'm going to cut across. Thank you. Let's say the word marijuana. Marijuana, or the new presentation of marijuana, thus has does have a place in my mind in cancer treatment. But other than that, I know it's being used for anxiety prevention, but I think we're replacing one problem with another in the long run. But there is a benefit in cancer treatment. It helps people eat more and get rid of the nausea.
So a recent report that the high potency cannabis does result in genetic changes of sort, has to do with epigenetics. And that is not a change in the sequence, but it has a change in how, whether the genes are active or inactive. So we know that cannabis does mess with our metabolism, and it is something that we need to be cautious about.
I would pretty much agree with Dr. Ignacio. I found benefit for patients that do have cancer. There's antioxidant properties in it as well. It fulfills a pathway, and it's called the endocannabinoid pathway, which is huge immune and inflammation. So it is beneficial there. It's just that the science is not completely in mind. And I have a patient who has completely went off the rails with doing recreational marijuana and is now in a psychiatric facility. It has been for close to a year now as a result of too much. So there's a big side of it, like Dr. Natson is alluding to. So hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you so much. If there are any more questions in house, if not, okay, yes,
Well, thank you guys so much for bringing awareness. I just graduated nursing school in May, and during my time in nursing school, I didn't get any education on how to holistically or naturopathic, anything with preventative care. And I think that's such a key, and I'm so glad you guys are here. I want to know if there's ways that I can bring about awareness and education for people I'm around, because I think there is such a deficit in knowledge about these things. We don't give any nutritional facts or anything, and if we do, it's menus about cardiac health, and then we offer them processed meats or we offer them carbs instead. And the carnivore diet, I really think, is the solution to a lot of things. But I'm just wondering, what are the sources that I can help others turn to with this lack of knowledge?
Again, I will advocate for YouTube. And Jim was kind enough to show me that you can use Chat GPT. They have an app within Chat GPT that will convert the video into a summary. So if you want to, that we can collect these summaries, and then you can put the word surface that would be on it. Also, I do have an online database, and in my database I have collection of articles that I found on the National Library of Medicine's database called PubMed.gov. And I collected mainly articles pertaining to genetics or genomics or proteomics, or other things related to genetics. And in my database, I have 57,000 articles on diabetes type 2. Well, then you say, well, I can't put 57,000. Well, that's what my database comes in. It breaks it out by subtopic. And then you can look at subtopics of health conditions, for instance. So, and it could say that the same articles that talk about type 2 diabetes are also talking about diabetes or insulin resistance, your metabolic syndrome, or oxidative stress, or neoplasms, or Alzheimer's, or atherosclerosis. And you could then drill down and find the articles and find things you never knew or even discussed. So that's a resource. If you want to learn more about it, I'm talking after our session.
Ron is like my professor. On a practical level, the majority of the public, you're going to have a hard time even addressing technical terminology. That's why I always, when I'm talking to patients, talking about high blood pressure, instead of hypertension, like cholesterol, and I specify when I need to, but just the basics in getting the word out there. You can, depending on which facility you start working, most hospitals have for their patient population tracks where you can help them become more knowledgeable on certain areas. And I think having someone that can translate the jargon into everyday language is going to be important. And it may become a second job or your job in the future, because I think we don't have enough. So I'm glad you're interested in that. Prevention is going to be the next game. Medicare did not even recognize prevention until recently. There were just pains for the kid. And the commercial insurance companies recognized it way back, because when you keep a patient healthy, it's a lot less expensive than when you have to treat them in a hospital. So kudos to you for that advantage.
I want to say, I think you're a bunch of nurses. Your job is so tough. It is so essential. And I want to say thank you for doing what you do.
I don't have a job yet, so.
You will. The sad part is that in medicine and healthcare today, there's no training in nutrition unless a doctor somehow chooses to take something like that. But it's not, it's been continuing. So you're going to get on your own with that. But I would say pursue it because, as you know, it's about sense. And I think that just your own health will speak as an example because people will say, what are you doing? And they'll ask you questions like that. And then you could also be knowledgeable as well. And we're not talking about a great resource. But yeah, get patients, vitality, sick vitality is going to be an uphill battle, but I think you're going to bring a lot of light to it. But just make sure you protect yourself because your job is so hard. You work such long hours and you're the hands and arms that are making others.
It's interesting that Dr. Augustine said we don't really get any education. I had 1 week in all of my medical training regarding nutrition. 1 week. If you are interested in have to learn it yourself.
Good morning. Thank you so much for this panel discussion and bringing awareness to such an important topic. I know Dr. Jim mentioned a few things that we could do, but one thing that I have found has been there's such an abundance of information out there on YouTube and other sources. And you hear eat more protein, make sure to do earthing so you can get your mitochondria going. There's so many different things. And I know everyone's situation is different, but all of us being here, what would be one key takeaway that you could say, if you start here, this could be something good to get you going on this journey? What would you recommend?
I'll make it quick. 3 things. The first is diet, exercise, and soil balance. So really look at your diet, your exercise. Smoking and drinking, obviously not good. The second piece, really important, is to make sure you get your checkups, because the second killer in America is cancer. And if you get your frequent checkups, you may be able to find it early and prevent an inevitable death. The other is get vaccines. There are 2 vaccines out there, HPV, human papillomavirus, which can prevent multiple types of cancer, and hepatitis B. You'll never get liver cancer from hepatitis and hepatitis B vaccine. And last one is to avoid toxins across the board. It's important to be knowledgeable what you're dealing with. Many people didn't know what asbestos will lead to, and then they ended up with lung cancer. And if you're going to be out in the sun and working outside, I know as men we tend to be tough or not knowledgeable enough when we're young, but wear sunscreen because you can avoid skin cancer very easily.
When I was young, I lived on a farm in North Dakota, Minnesota, and we ate the garden. Everything was home cooked. But nowadays, people are going with fast food or processed foods, convenience foods, and you have to look at the ingredients. So there are a lot of ingredients there that you can't even pronounce. Of course, unless you practice. But I heard a medical doctor talking, and he's a fan of keto diets, and he's saying that there are various things that are promoted. Cinnamon is good, so on and so forth. He says they don't move the needle much. The things that move the needle more would be exercise and sleep and stress reduction. But the second, about 75% that move the needle is reducing your carbohydrate intake of all types, especially sugar, but starches also.
I was glad you asked the question, Risha, because if you're in the process or you're starting to think about Yeah, I've got a way to reduce my carbs. I think eat a lot of carbs. Who doesn't love carbs? I do too. I love chocolate. Is using fat as a tool to satisfy you. You have a satisfaction percent of your brain for fat, but you don't have any for sugar or carbs. So use fat every time you start to get hungry. Eat some fat. Have a handful of good nuts like macadamias or something like that, and give it about 2-3 minutes, and they'll satisfy you. And it'll help you to ward ways what you can eat to fuel your body best, as opposed to eat for hunger and taste. It'll be far better. And walking. Start walking. Walking is incredible. The number one marker for health longevity is VO2 max. It's a measure of maximal oxygen uptake in the body, use of oxygen. Walking will keep that number consistently high. Walk 30 minutes a day. Walk twice a day, 30 minutes, even better. And you'll see this marker climb. It's your energy climb, and you're seeing a great dramatic. Right, Howard?
Thank you for all those who had questions. We have time for one more question. If anyone online would like to pose a question, please feel free to do that right now.
Can you move the projector cover? There's a cover there. Yeah.
Anyone online? I don't see any hands going up. No? Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and thank our panelists for a wonderful. I hope this has inspired some of you in our club to do something different. Look on the pathways and see what else you can do that's going to stretch your potential and growth. And I do have a few more questions, but I think we should probably end at this time. So I want to thank you all for participating, and let's make America healthy again. Charlie.